Next call for Congresswoman Hayworth, Wallington, New Jersey. Mary Lou on our independent line. You're on the Washington Journal.
Good morning, Peter, and good morning, Dr. Hayworth.
Good morning.
I have a question regarding spending that involves massive spending across this country that no one seems to be addressing. And it involves the issue of illegal immigration. Now, the superintendent of Los Angeles County in California did a study on what illegal immigration was costing his one county in 1 year, and it was $600 million. The Center for Immigration Studies issued a report that stated that 71% of households with illegal aliens that have children are receiving welfare, as opposed to 52% of legal Americans.
So, Mary Lou, what would you like to see the Congress do about that issue?
I would like to see our immigration laws enforced, Peter, in terms of pushing E-Verify, which, thank God, the Supreme Court just okayed in the state of Arizona. I would like to see more deportations. I think we need to really look at this issue and what it is costing the taxpayer instead of going after Medicare and Social Security, which legal Americans have paid into.
Congresswoman Hayworth.
Mary Lou, nobody's going after Medicare and Social Security in the budget that we passed in the House in April. In fact, we are endeavoring to assure that Medicare and Social Security carry out the obligations to those receiving those benefits now who are imminently receiving them. So I'm right with you. And it's very true that we have significant lapses in the way in which we have addressed our immigration policy. We're very much cognizant of that as we go through the appropriations process. This month, in the coming month, you're going to see a lot done on Homeland Security, on border security, and in fact, E-Verify is going to be a part of the bills that we're considering, because we do want to make sure that that is a logical and really pretty easy to follow first step to ensure that we're identifying illegal immigration when people come up for a job opportunity. And it's not as widely used as it could be, so that does need to be better enforced. The 287G program is going to be another subject of our attention. We do want to help our local police departments when they can engage in identifying when someone who is in the country illegally has committed a crime. It would seem that that would be, again, a fairly ready opportunity to address the presence of someone in this country who should not be here. So you are going to see through the budget process, through what we devote to border security, we are very cognizant of the fact that that's an important issue, and to what we do about E-Verify and do about 287G. You're going to see action taken in this Congress in the next few weeks.
This is the Washington Journal. Our guest is Representative Nan Hayworth, a Republican freshman from New York. William, Democrat, Saluda, South Carolina.
Yes, how you doing?
Good.
I want to make two comments. As anybody knows, ever since the Republicans took over the House, this economy has down dramatically. And let me explain why I say that. All you do is talk about cut. You don't cut so much till you don't cut it to the private sector. It it'll slow down on their hiring. And point number two, who's going to go out there and start a new business when they worry about the debt service not being raised? If they get a loan, the interest rate's going to shoot up if we go into default. Stop playing games with the American people. And just stop looking out for one segment of people in society, like the Tea Party. The Tea Party don't represent the whole United States of America. And I'm afraid, well, I'm not afraid, I hope, and I know what's going to happen in 2012. Take a good look around, this Congress lady, because you won't be there in 2012, and the Democrats will take back over the House, because you're destroying the middle class with all these cuts, because private sector cannot go out and hire when they worry about money. You're taking so much money out of the economy to where the private sector can't go hire because people don't have money to spend.
All right, William, we got the point. Congresswoman Hayworth.
William, all the money that the federal government spends comes from the pockets of working Americans. That's just a fact. So what we're doing in the majority in the House, and it was a majority that was elected overwhelmingly in an unprecedented wave in our lifetimes in November of 2010, which sent a very clear message that the American people who elected us to do this job, who hired us, felt that the federal government was doing far too much, was taking too much from them. So-called stimulus comes from the American people's pockets, and then the federal government takes that money and sends it through a bureaucracy. And while these are well-meaning people, I've seen bureaucracies firsthand now in this job in Washington, and it's not efficient. They don't know how to run a business in your community, William. Federal bureaucracies do a very poor job, and I'll give you one example. There was a recent news story, probably about 2 weeks ago, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and how their programs have wasted at least $300 million precious taxpayer dollars that come out of the pockets of working Americans, that come out of the pockets of the middle class. $300 million wasted on local housing programs that they just didn't know how to administer. They didn't hire contractors who were going to be responsible. They didn't hire contractors who knew what they were actually supposed to be doing. They didn't use criteria that would realistically indicate what kind of jobs they were capable of doing. And this is typical when you have a federal government from Washington trying to do that kind of local work. That's why we want Washington to stop doing that kind of thing. We want Washington not to take dollars from you. We want you to keep those dollars, keep that working capital. Let our small businesses that are drowning in regulations. And that's what our small business people across our district in New York and the Hudson Valley have told me. They are drowning in regulations. Their insurance costs have risen with the Affordable Care Act. Their bureaucratic responsibilities have expanded. They can't have access to capital the way they'd like to because banks aren't loaning the way our community banks aren't loaning the way they'd like to because they're under the gun from regulators. And a lot of this relates to what happened with the financial regulatory law and the circumstances surrounding it. So we've got a big problem on our hands that we as legislators can solve by bringing Washington under control. So we're on your side, William, and I don't think you're going to see in 2012 that the Republican Congress will have its work repudiated. I think people are going to find that we're doing all we can to fight a tide of rising regulation and spending in Washington.
This tweet for you, Representative, from Spoonie35. Do you feel we need any additional revenue? If so, where should it come from?
Raising taxes is not the way to stimulate an economy. Raising taxes suppresses activity. It's a way of penalizing hard work, if you will. It is true that the federal government can take in more revenues if the economy grows. And so when the economy grows, we have more Americans who, in fact, can contribute to a reasonable tax obligation. We do have certain responsibilities the federal government and our state and local governments have to fulfill. We do need to use tax revenues for that. But if everybody's able to work and contribute and to grow because they're able to appreciate the results of their hard work and appreciate the results of their success, that's the way to make sure that we have adequate revenues. But that is assuming that we have a federal government that actually spends wisely. And that's where budget restraint comes in. I mean, this is about making the federal government the right size. It's not about taking good things from the American people. It's about letting them have good things, letting them enjoy what they work so hard for, letting them take responsibility in their lives in ways that will assure that all of us do better. And that's really, that's the goal.
Next call for Congresswoman Hayworth, North Salem, New York. Howard on a Republican line. Is that another city in your district?
That is in our district. Good morning, Howard.
Hey, good morning, Ms. Congresswoman Hayworth. How are you? And thank you for being on today.
Thank you, sir.
As you know, I'm a member of Team Watch New York.
Yes.
We're a group of constituents who poll watch and communicate with our representatives so that we have a good working relationship. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that Timothy Geithner and President Barack Obama have said that if we don't raise the debt ceiling, that the U.S. will default on its debt. There's a proposal, it's H.R. 421, the Full Faith and Credit Act. It was proposed by Congressman McClintock, I believe.
Yes.
And if that is passed, it says that the government will have to pay us interest before it pays any other debts or any other obligations. That would prevent us from defaulting, give stability to the markets, and ensure that we continue to have low interest rates on our bonds. At a meeting in Carmel, New York, you had said that you were going to co-sponsor this bill. You just wanted to have your legislative people do a quick review of it. And we noticed as of the other day you are not listed as a co-sponsor. I was wondering if you found any faults with that bill.
No.
Hey, before we get the answer, Howard, what is Team Watch New York?
Team Watch New York is a group of constituents around the state of New York who we watch and we communicate with our representatives so that we know they're doing what they're supposed to be doing constitutionally and that they know how we feel about different issues.
Are you associated with the Tea Parties?
No, we're not Tea Party. We're just constituents who want to be involved with our government, and we've broken ourselves down into different congressional districts. I work in CD 19, and we communicate with Congresswoman Hayworth. We watch her. We write reports about her. She knows what's going on in the district. If she needs any help, she can come to us.
All right, Howard, we
go to her.
We got the point. Congresswoman Hayworth, do you know Howard?
I do know Howard, and I have met with Team Watch and with members of Team Watch many, many times, and I laud what they do. Howard, it's just an oversight in that case because I have discussed co-sponsoring that McClintock bill. And thank you for the reminder. You can imagine that we have a very, very full plate of legislation, including what we're working on as legislation emerging from our office. So I appreciate that. That's one of the examples of why Team Watch is a helpful partner for me. So thanks. We'll make sure that gets done.
And here's somebody else from your district who's emailed in. Sandra Armour is her name.
Yes.
I live in your district. If you're worried about the debt, why not stop the subsidies for nuclear power? Loan guarantees mean that if a plant has an accident, the government would have to pick up the tab for billions of dollars. I live 6 miles from Indian Point, and I want it shut down. The NRC is holding a public meeting in Westchester tonight. Everyone should come.
I think I've met Ms. Armour at a town hall meeting that we held in Bedford. Every aspect of our tax structure does need to be scrutinized. There's no question. We need a flatter, fairer, less complicated tax system. Absolutely. But that means that we actually have to look at the entire constellation of what we've cobbled together over the years to try to compensate for what are unreasonable levels relative to what the rest of the world has as a base tax rate in terms of corporate taxes. So there are lots of fingers that have been put on the scales of our tax system to help different constituencies. They all need to be worked down and out of these complications so that everybody's paying the same and everybody's doing the right thing. So I do understand the genesis of the question in that way. With regard to nuclear power, I have met with the NRC. I've met with all of their monitors on site at Indian Point. I've met with the management of Indian Point. I've toured the plant twice now, most recently, of course, after Fukushima Daiichi. And I am satisfied that the plant is being run responsibly with a primary concern for safety because, of course, it is a very useful source of power. It is a carbon-clean power, which is important in this environment. I do care about our carbon emissions, and so nuclear power is a great alternative in that way. But, of course, it does have to be pursued safely. And I am satisfied, as someone who also lives in the neighborhood, if you will, of Indian Point, that it is not placing us in any sort of imminent danger and has redundancy upon redundancy built in response to what has been learned over the decades in which we've used nuclear power.
You've got a very active constituency. I don't think we've ever gotten this many calls from your from a local
well, we do,
constituency.
and I enjoy meeting with them, and so we do. We're on the road all the time in the district.